2022 meeting of the City of Lakeland Planning and Zoning Board. The board meets every third Tuesday of the month to review proposals for changing the city's comprehensive plan, its future land use map, zoning changes consistent with the map, and conditional use permits. The board is made up of 7 members appointed by the City Commission and is assisted by the staff of the Community and Economic Development Department and the City Attorney's Office staff. And the City Attorney's Office. Staff will advance any presentation slides that should have been provided prior to the meeting. The meeting is divided into 2 parts. The first part is a public hearing where we expect to hear new applicants explain their request and receive comments from affected parties. The second part of the meeting is termed the general meeting and primarily consists of acting on recommendations from staff about the cases that came up in the prior month's meeting. We invite everyone who wishes to participate to be heard. We do ask that you be concise in your comments and that speakers avoid being repetitive. That is, if several people have pointed out traffic concerns, there is no need to hear additional comments regarding traffic again. But we would like to hear anything new that has not been addressed. In order to allow everyone to have an opportunity to speak, there will be a 3-minute time limit for each speaker, and the clerk has a timer for this purpose. We respectfully ask that you adhere to this rule. We also ask at this time that you silence all mobile devices. Also, if you do come up to the microphone to make a comment, please give your name and your address. With that, we thank you all for being here, and I'll turn the meeting over to our Acting Secretary, Leanne Lones.
Item 1, compatibility review to allow for the construction of an accessory dwelling unit on property located at 826 Johnson Avenue. Owner applicant, David Sewell. And this is for consideration of a final decision.
Yes, it is. Good morning. My name is Philip Scaris. I'm Principal Planner with Community Economic Development. I will just advance a couple slides here, but I'll let Mr. Sewell go ahead and explain what he's trying to do. Go ahead. You can come up there.
Okay, on the property in the back, I had a storage garage in the back, actually.
Sir, can you please state your name and address for the record?
Okay. I'm sorry. David A. Sewell, 826 Johnson Avenue, Lakeland, Florida.
Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, actually, so this project is for a dwelling on the top, and the bottom part's just going to be a garage and storage unit. I had one back there before. It was taken out by the hurricane. I never did put it back. I had the opportunity to put it back right now. So that's...
Any questions? Yeah.
This is the proposed site plan. So the accessory dwelling unit, obviously in the rear yard, it will extend the driveway to provide parking back to the unit. There's a garage underneath and the living area atop. It's a maximum height and for ADUs is 24 feet. This is a 21-foot structure. It's 2 stories. Again, with the garage on the bottom and dwelling unit on top. The garage is approximately 600 square feet. The living area on top is approximately 550 square feet. This is a single-family zoning, RA4, within the South Lake Morton Historic District. This did go to the Historic Preservation Board last year in March and did receive approval. So this does come to you with a recommendation for the design anyway of the accessory dwelling unit and garage apartment. Staff is recommending an approval subject to the general standards. She outlined number 1, either the principal dwelling or the accessory dwelling unit shall be the legal resident of the property owner. Number 2, development standards in accordance with the RA1, that's the RA4, I'll correct that. Zoning classification of the Land Development Code, developed in accordance with the site plan as included in attachment A, which you just saw, and the architectural elevations are in attachment B, which previously shown here. So, but staff is recommending approval of the ADU. Got to go back.
Any other
Here's the
questions?
site plan. And just go back one more to show you a picture. This is the front of the house, and that driveway under the portico share there will go back to the accessory dwelling unit. It does meet all the setbacks and does meet all the standards for an accessory dwelling unit. So stand for any questions you may have.
Any other questions, any questions at all from the board? Any comments from the audience? No? Okay, do I hear a motion to accept the recommendation? Who's it?
I'll move that we accept the recommendation of
All in favor?
I second.
Oh, yes, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Oh, good.
Item 2, annual update to portions of the capital improvement element of Lakeland Comprehensive Plan, Our Community 2030, including the 5-year capital improvement program. Applicant, City of Lakeland, consideration of a final decision.
All right, well, good morning. For the record, Chuck Barnaby with the Community and Economic Development Department. This is an annual process in which we take the adopted capital improvement plan for the City of Lakeland, all of the departments as adopted by the City Commission prior to the start of the fiscal year, and incorporate that into our 10-year comprehensive plan. Really, the intent here is to show how we are addressing the city's level of service standards through its investments in public infrastructure. So in terms of the categories and the public and the board, you all have seen this earlier this year. It's broken out based on transportation. It used to be the Parks and Recreation kind of line items within the budget. It's now called the Public Improvement Fund. We've got stormwater, water utilities, parking, airport, and community redevelopment area. So these are the line items as adopted and budgeted annually. Essentially what we want to do is establish that the projects that we have that comply with our, to help us comply with our level of service standards in the comprehensive plan are financially feasible. So it lays out revenue and expenditures, including grants that we've received over the past few years. I think probably the biggest kind of water utilities projects that we have right now are wastewater improvements in the West Lakeland area tied to wastewater, the new wastewater trunk line, some of the ARPA funding that is going to help us be able to accommodate growth on that side of town. Parks and Recreation, English Creek Park is the 101-acre tract that was recently purchased by the city, received land use and zoning through this board and through the City Commission. We do have funding shown in fiscal year 2030 for soccer fields tied to that recreation facility. We've got Lake Bonnet, the Lake Bonnet Stormwater Mitigation Project. It received almost $43 million of state funding. That's reflected in the CIE. And then transportation projects such as the Wabash extension to the south. The picture shown on the screen is the North Wabash extension opened earlier this year, but the southern extension is going through the right-of-way acquisition process. Construction is still not budgeted yet, but that project is certainly going to help us with north-south mobility in central Lakeland. So included in your packet is a summary table as well as the tables as adopted by the Commission for the individual sections. And so this just really illustrates how it's broken out over the 10-year period, which is fairly unique. Most local governments just stick to the required 5 years, but we go that extra 5 years to be able to show how we're going out to a 10-year horizon. And so that is all we have. We ask for your approval. If approved today, we'll take it on to the City Commission for them to approve in December. So I'll be happy to stand for any questions.
Any questions, Ms. Barnaby, from the board? Any comments from the audience?
Just for clarification, for the agenda packet, the spreadsheets that have the red X through them, those are the old spreadsheets that are being stricken through.
Exactly.
And then the spreadsheets that don't have the X, those are what they're being replaced with.
Exactly.
Okay, just for clarity.
Do we have any idea of what the progress is on the fiber optic network that's supposedly coming?
I know that they are working right now. The city, working with Summit, is installing infrastructure in primarily the kind of south central part of the central city area. So like around the Glendale, coming up towards Hollingsworth from the south. I believe they should be here in the fairly near future working towards Lake Morton area and closer into downtown. I haven't heard any specifics on that installation other than they are working more on the south central part of the city.
Well, I've tried several times to get information from supposedly the person that's heading that project or overseeing it, and I can't get anything about when different sections are proposed.
We can certainly get that information, actually bring that back to the board next month for
That
information.
would be helpful, and I think the public would like to have an idea and a sense of, how that's gonna progress.
And when they can expect it maybe coming on their street, because I know they've already almost completed installation on mine, and I'm in the Cleveland Heights Historic District, or Neighborhood Association, so.
Any other questions? Any comments from the audience? Any questions from the audience? Okay, do I hear a motion to accept the city's plan?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you very much.
Item 3, minor modification of PUD Planned Unit Development zoning to amend conditions of approval pertaining to driveway spacing and pedestrian connectivity, adjust internal development tract boundaries, and adopt a new signage plan on property located at 4070 Lakeland Highlands Road, owner Orlando Health Incorporated, applicant John Evelyn, VHB Incorporated. And this is for consideration of a final decision.
Yes, again, for the record, Philip Scarce, Principal Planner with Community Economic Development. This is a minor modification for the Orlando Health PUD that was adopted back in 2020. If you recall, the plan that was done, and this is the location, I'll just go back, this is the location at the corner of Lakeland Highlands Road and State Route 570, the Polk Parkway. We're familiar with the site. If you recall, the old PUD was just based on a tract plan. There really wasn't, was what we call in planning or a bubble plan. It really wasn't a very detailed site plan, so the applicant's coming back with us today with more detail. Phase 1, as you recall, was going to be just a drive-up or emergency room, but they've changed that. They want to go and do the entire hospital project, so they've come in with a more detailed site plan, as you showed. So attachment C will be replaced. This will serve as their site plan and their pedestrian circulation plan. As you can see, the red lines show the circulation through the site and will connect to the Fort Fraser Trail extension. And including with this, they are also requesting sign locations. So attachment D will be replaced with a more specific detail of their signage, as well as attachment D1, which with those sign details, D1, where they have some new signage. And with that, I'll let the applicant to give you the details on the hospital and their proposal for the minor modification.
Good morning. I'm Neil Strelo, Senior Planner with VHB, Authorized Agent. My office is located at 501 East Kennedy Boulevard, Suite 1010, Tampa, Florida. Staff has done a great job, showed the exhibits that were being considered and highlighted internal roadway spacing along Sandlin Golf Drive, removal and replacement of the track plan, specifically an update of the condition for pedestrian movements throughout the site, and then modification of the comprehensive sign plan. We've met with staff. The final conditions of approval we received this morning, and we are in concurrence with those. We would request your approval on the application. Thank you.
Any questions from the board?
And I'm just going to go over a couple of additional details with the conditions that are being modified. Specifically, we are adding some language now that they're coming with some specifics, excuse me. We're adding some language. This is just from the code regarding architectural materials and facades for accessory and primary structures, shall be in accordance with the land development code and as well as foundation landscaping around the building and accessory structures as well. Just some changes there. We had called out D1. It was mistakenly listed as attachment E in the ordinance, so we're just correcting that Scrivener error, taking the track language out of there. This is a site plan. And then as far as the movements on Sandland Golf Drive, there were specific measurements in the old PUD, but now we're just referring them to as shown within attachment C. So, and they're pretty far advanced as far as the engineering goes. So those access points that we see in attachment C, we don't expect to be altered. With that, we do recommend approval of the minor modification and stand for any questions.
Any questions at all? Any comments from the audience?
Will there be any new traffic lights on Lakeland Highlands in connection with this?
Yeah, go ahead and check it.
And great question, and actually there's back in 2020 when the original PUD was adopted, there was a parallel development agreement that was also executed by the commission that requires the installation of a traffic signal at Deerfield, Sandland Golf Drive, and Lakeland Highlands Road.
Okay.
That's required, I believe, as prior to first CO issuance, certificate of occupancy,
Okay.
so it is required on the front end of the development.
Okay, good.
Any other questions? Other comments? Do I hear a motion to approve the request of the applicant for modification?
I move to approve the request of the applicant.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, sir.
Item 4, annexation, a small-scale land use amendment to apply a future land use designation of residential medium and the application of PUD zoning concurrent with a city-initiated request to apply a urban neighborhood context sub-district designation to allow for the development of 80 single-family attached dwelling units on approximately 10.6 acres located at the southeast corner of West 10th Street and Saratoga Avenue. Owner, Lakeland Housing Authority. Applicant, Boggs Engineering, LLC.
Hi, good morning. Again, for the record, Philip Scarce, Principal Planner with Community Economic Development. Just got late word yesterday afternoon that the applicant, Housing Authority, is requesting a 1-month continuance. This was advertised and a notice was placed, so if there's anybody here wanting some information, I can go through some slides. But we do expect their site plan to change because of the continuance. So I'll just give you just a brief rundown. It's located on 10th Street West. 10th Street and Saratoga Avenue. It's the location here. Looking into the site off of 10th Street, looking west on 10th Street, east on 10th Street. And this is looking north across the road. This is another Housing Authority project, Colony. And this is looking southwest into the site on 10th Street. This is looking south on Saratoga Avenue. And this is looking east on Saratoga Avenue on the northern portion of the site, excuse me. And this is looking northeast on Saratoga Avenue. Their site plan currently is single-family attached subdivision, but again, this is subject to change for next month. But we will come back next month with another public hearing, but they do request a continuance.
I think we need a motion to continue.
Oh, okay. All right, make a motion. Do I hear a motion to approve the request for continuance?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Item 5, major modification of PUD zoning to allow up to 320 multifamily dwelling units as an alternative development scenario from existing entitlements which allow up to 558 multifamily dwelling units for the elderly on property located at 777 Carpenters Way. Owner, Lakeland Senior Living, number 3 LLC. Applicant, Timothy Campbell, Clark Campbell, Lancaster, Workman, and Arth, PA.
Good morning. For the record, Todd Vargo, Senior Planner with Community and Economic Development. This modification to the PUD is located on the north side of Carpenter's Way between Carpenter's Home, and there's a new, it's a rehab center, I think. So it's this empty spot here, which you may not realize is all that empty if you drive Carpenter's Way, because there's a pretty heavy tree canopy on between Carpenter's Way and the main part of the subject site. So this PUD was originally approved in 2015 with 558 multifamily dwelling units for the elderly, and they came through a couple of times with some minor modifications, increasing the maximum height to 6 stories and allowing up to 44 of those units to be constructed as villas. Here's Carpenter's Way down here, just again, so you can orient yourself, and then Lake Gibson would be up here. So this is after the 2015 PUD was approved and the minor modifications that came through. This is the current entitlements. This is the site plan as submitted by the applicant. I understand there's this morning I understand there's a new site plan so what was applied for was the 320 units, sorry, including 16 townhome units. On the new plan that I saw this morning, those townhomes are gone, and there's another multifamily structure here. I think the applicant does have it and can provide it in his slideshow. So this is that tree canopy I was talking about. This is looking north at the site from Carpenter's Way. You can see the plan is to preserve these trees along Carpenter's Way. This is looking west at the site from, or at the Lake Gibson Village and Health Rehab across the way. That's the new rehabilitation. So Carpenter's Home would be at my back when I was taking this picture. North is on the right-hand side of the screen. This is looking north from Carpenter's Home. And this is looking northeast from Carpenter's Home, and you can see Lake Gibson there in the background. So again, this is the this was the current site plan. Like I said, but it has changed. 320 multifamily dwelling units, and there are some 3-story structures as well as 4-story structures. This is the site plan overlaid on an aerial photo, so you can get a little better idea. Here is, again, Carpenter's Home. Here's the new rehab center. There's a mobile home park up here. This is, boy, we've dealt with this for years, or for months now, and I'm blanking on the multifamily, the name of the multifamily, Audubon Oaks, right?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. I'm so proud of myself when I get it right. And here's Lake Gibson up here. And then, okay, so now here's the 3- and 4-story configurations. The blue dots are 4-story multifamily buildings, and the yellow dots are 3-story multifamily buildings. Again, these townhomes are being changed with the new site plan. I'll have another similar slide like this next month, showing you again all the 4- and 3-story building configurations. I think that's all I had for, that's all I had for my presentation. I'll ask the applicant if he wants to get up and,
Has the unit count changed with the addition of that building, or has it stayed the same?
I do not know. I imagine it's at least stayed the same because we advertised for 320
Okay.
market rate multifamily units, and if they want to up it, then we need to have this public hearing. We need to re-advertise and have this public hearing all over again, because we
Now,
can't
is this-
increase the number.
Is this specifically for senior living, or is
The
it,
original one was for senior living.
okay,
Oh,
So this would be an alternative development scenario for market rate rentals, so they could do either the current 558 for multifamily for the elderly, or this is approved, they could do 320 market rate multifamily.
So
Right,
they're
the-
not going to be replacing the original request for 500 SMUDs?
That's correct, they want to retain that option for those entitlements depending on where the market demand is. So they're asking for this, and then in addition to what they currently have, but it'll be either or.
Either or, once they
Yes.
decide, okay.
Yeah, they want to leave this multifamily for the elderly option available to them, but also want the opportunity to maybe do the 320 multifamily units as an alternative scenario. Sorry if I didn't make that clear, my
Now,
apologies.
is that left open if down the road they build let's say the 5-story units, and then they decide you need more? No, that's it. The other goes away completely.
Yeah, you have to commit to one plan or the other, so they can't have a mix of
So you're not going to have an
both.
overabundance of
and
traffic.
and they don't
added.
have a developer or anything in place for this yet, or a buyer?
Our understanding is they currently do not, so they're just seeking the entitlements today. So the applicant can clarify.
This is just so they can shop and get the best.
And I see Mr. Campbell coming up to the.
yeah,
He's chomping at the bit.
organized, yeah,
I know he's gonna hate me.
me too.
First, no ma'am. For purposes of your record, my name is Tim Campbell, the law firm of Clark Campbell, Lancaster, Workman, and Airth, 500 South Florida Avenue. Here representing today the Ryan Companies, who is the developer and contract purchaser for this property. Also with us is Mark Wilson with Kinley Horn & Associates, our project engineer. I'm going to address all your questions as I go through the presentation. They're all good questions, and I'm sorry that some of it's confusing. I'll start with, this is a case, as the realtors on your board will understand, where a seller says, we don't want the zoning to change unless you close. And as a buyer, you don't close until you have your zoning. So retaining the existing rights for the units for the elderly are solely to satisfy the seller. The Ryan Companies is a multifamily developer market rate. They are proceeding with the plan that we're requesting, but we have to do as an alternative to get through this contractual issue with the seller, which is not that abnormal. But Ryan Companies is moving forward with the multifamily plan that we are requesting. As you heard, we're seeking to modify the existing PUD to significantly reduce the number of units, to reduce the building height, and to adopt an improved site plan. And I'll start with, actually, can you put this up? So currently, as you heard, it's approved for 558 multifamily units for the elderly. They're located in 5- and 6-story buildings with an amenity center. And we did come before you in 2015. We have very few residential neighbors, but back then we met with residents of the mobile home park. We have a significant buffer on that north side adjacent to them. And we limited our 5- and 6-story, we limited it to a 5-story building at that location. We had an elevation then where you could barely see the top of the building. Fortunately, the buffer is even bigger because I drove and looked at it, and the building there will be even smaller. So that's a good thing. We're now requesting as the alternative, but this is the use that will be pursued, 320 market rate multifamily units in 3- and 4-story buildings with an amenity center. And you saw, and Todd addressed, the significant tree preservation along the frontage on Carpenter's Way, which is a very nice buffer, significant and park-like in nature. So what you see now is Ryan Companies has tweaked their plan. They reached out to the Association for the Mobile Home Park, and they're trying to reach out to the one single-family resident who's near us. But this plan even further reduces the impacts than what we first filed. And where's the little? Okay. So go with that building first. So that building in the initial plan were townhomes. And that's the closest to, and you'll see in a minute, I'm going to show you a comparison of the existing entitlements to our proposed. Those were townhomes in our application. That's the closest to the single family home. So Ryan Companies, exactly right there. Ryan Companies ultimately transformed those townhomes into another multifamily building oriented at east and west, as opposed to what you'll see the existing rights are one that faces right towards that single family home. So this is oriented east and west. We are not requesting more units than the 320 that we've requested. This plan is still a 320 unit plan. Also there to the north, Todd. So that was a building also oriented east and west, kind of facing the mobile home park. This one is oriented north and south. That is a 4-story building where his pin is, because it's just the end of building that faces the mobile home park. The building there to the left is a 3-story. Again, those are smaller than the 5-story that is currently approved, so they're smaller with an even bigger buffer, and we're pretty comfortable that this is a less impact for any of our surrounding residents. There are no other changes on the plan other than when we filed it, it said boat launch, and initially they were exploring adding a boat launch for Lake Gibson. Now it's just, I think they're going to improve the dock that's already there, so there's no longer a plan to do a boat launch. So all of these changes, it's a improvement when first filed, and the latter plan that you see before you is even a better improvement and a further reduction of impacts to those around us. This plan has a reduced utility impact, water and sewer. Because of the transition of senior units to market rate, the transportation trips, there's not as drastic a difference, but there are no greater number of trips. So we're not introducing new trips with this change of plan. As you saw, our building orientations, we sought to make them friendlier and more compatible with any of the surrounding residential neighbors that we have. So all aspects of this request reflect reduced impacts. We already have our Polk County School Board binding school concurrency determination, and let me kind of just walk you through, because I think this is a good illustration. So similar to what Todd showed you, the existing plan is there on the right. This one kind of shows the mobile home park units up there, up on the north, and the other side. I'm on the right side to start. That's okay. And the single family lots there along Lake Gibson, and there's that one that's closest to us. So you see the building next to that faced the single family home, and you see the building near the mobile home park faced the mobile home park. You can see the number of buildings. They are 5 and 6 stories. I think that one's 5, the rest are 6. The villas that lie within the middle of the site, and the frontage along Carpenter's Way was not proposed to be preserved. You switch to our new plan, you can see all the building orientations are more friendly to any of the surrounding residential uses. The tree preserves in place, there are less buildings, and they are mostly 4-story because they're not next to any residential, and the 3-story that I showed you earlier towards the mobile home park, and there to the southeast corner. So with that, we think it's it's an improved plan, it's less impactful, and it meets the needs for the Ryan Company's intention to develop a market rate multifamily community, singularly owned and managed, with the amenity center located, as you can see, closer to Carpenter's Way, so it too is away from any adjacent residential uses. And with that, we stand available for any questions that you may have and respectfully request the opportunity to respond to any comments that you hear during public comment.
Any questions for Mr. Campbell?
From a traffic standpoint, you see the reduction in units and previous entitlement uses essentially equal themselves out, is that correct?
They're pretty close.
The previous plan looks like it has significantly less parking area, and it seems as though the new plan has significantly more traffic parking area. Is that true?
I don't know if Mr. Wilson or Mr. Barnaby will know if there's a different parking, per unit parking requirement for market rate multifamily than there is dwelling units for the elderly. I don't know the answer to that. And neither are jumping to the answer either.
Yeah, nobody's gonna put up.
Generally, I think multifamily for the elderly, it's, I believe it's like one space per unit. Whereas the market rate would be typically for a 2-bedroom or more would be 2 per unit. So it does have a higher parking generation rate.
So we're just meeting the code as far as the parking. And if you're thinking of the related traffic trips, the difference is going from, what,
558.
558 units. That's why you're still not creating more traffic because there's such a reduction. Even though the per unit parking and trips are probably higher, the unit count reduction is so significant that we're not creating more traffic than is already approved.
And to also help address the parking question, what is the proposed mix of number of bedrooms? Because that also plays a role in the overall parking count.
This is Nat Linden with the Ryan Companies.
Hey, good morning. Nat Linden with the Ryan Companies, 936 South Howard Avenue, Tampa, Florida. The unit mix is still in flux. It changes depending on what the market demands. Our provided parking, if you look at the approved or the submitted plan, we're simply proposing to meet the code. So as that mix might change, we provide more or less parking.
And that decision, that's not fluid forever. At the time we would go in for actual construction site plan approval, that will become fixed and it'll be designed at that point to address the mix of units that will be in that final plan.
I have a question. So theoretically, you could, with a site plan change, you can make all of those buildings 4 stories?
No, because, well, first of all, that would be too many units. But we'll have a site plan. Our site plan is binding, and those 3-story buildings that we showed will be designated as 3 stories, so your staff wouldn't allow us to do a 4-story where a 3-story is indicated.
Given this project and all the golf course stuff that we've looked at ad nauseum in the last few months, has the city given any consideration to speeding up their improvements to Carpenter's Way as far as ingress and egress?
Really, right now, the main issue that we have is with Lakeland Park Drive, and that's why the right-of-way dedication was an important part of the Gibson Trails development plan. We've been talking with Public Works about the 2 additional intervening properties between Gibson Trails and the current eastern terminus of Lakeland Park Drive, there by Dick's Sporting Goods. So we still need to go through the right-of-way acquisition process for that, but that's definitely something that's kind of the top of the radar at this point of trying to get
But nothing for Carpenter's?
Carpenter's Way, at this point, there's nothing funded. We have also been trying to figure out how to improve the operations of the approach there as you go from Corporate Way over to US 98. And, this traffic analysis, the Gibson Trails traffic analysis, and just kind of driving the corridor on a fairly regular basis. I mean, there is a queuing issue coming back from 98. I think part of that would be solved by adjusting the timings at the US 98 Carpenter's Way intersection. But
Which you said you had no control over, that's DOT.
There's some wiggle room that we do have control over, but ultimately DOT would have to approve those timing plans. Probably the bigger issue is getting more queuing for that westbound traffic coming up to the US 90 intersection. That's the existing issue that we as a city need to figure out. We've been talking about ways we can do that in addressing the current median opening for the SunTrust Bank, the old vacant bank that's on the north side of the road there, potentially closing that off, moving the median opening over to provide some additional queuing space. We also need to take a look at Corporate Avenue and Carpenter's Way to see if that four-way stop still makes sense.
Because Carpenter's Way seemed to be the biggest point of contention with the residents as we went through previous hearings on the golf course issues.
And that continues to be a big concern for staff as well, of how we would want to address that with the city, given all of the interests that are around that intersection.
Any other questions, Mr. Campbell?
Mr. Campbell, you agree that this is a either or, as was stated before, and just confirm that, and then at what point would they be locked in to one plan versus the other?
Chuck or Matt may want to chime in, but I would say that when we submit our construction plan approval for 320 multifamily units, that it would be fixed at that point.
And we could certainly put some condition language, if the applicant is agreeable to it, that really states that whatever is submitted for final engineering review and approval would lock in option A or option B.
Would the sale transaction be completed by that time, or would it still be pending with plan submittal?
So there's a chance that they will submit construction plan approval before they've closed. And so if there was a condition, maybe at the time of CO, or, we can do something as simple as when we close, give notice of the election of one of those two alternatives. Keeping in mind, once we move forward with one, there's no, once you've done all the design for a 320 unit multifamily community, you can't really waver into the other alternative. But we would do whatever's necessary. Our intention is clearly to move forward with the 320 unit multifamily community, and we just did it as an alternative because that was the way to satisfy a seller that we're not giving up something before we close.
From a legal standpoint, is there precedence of having alternative concepts approved at the PUD?
I know I've seen some come through here, and so I don't think there's any legal issue with it. I just wanted to make it clear that we're all on the same page, that this isn't going to be some kind of hybrid plan where you can kind of pick and choose elements from each of them, and that it's...
Yeah, we worked with Mr. Campbell in the past on similar approvals. North Village over there, like Sunnyside Village, was an example. It's bounced around several different proposals over the years. One initially was retail, and then an office mixture and like that. So we did come up with various options there. That did have some environmental constraints that has not developed, but that would sort of be the model we would be using going forward for the changes to the PUD.
How about something as simple as we have to submit a written notice of election of one of those alternatives, at which time the other alternative is no longer available?
Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the audience?
Public comment? Yes, sir. Right here, thank you.
Robert J. Stans, 5121 South Lakeland Drive, Lakeland 33813. Not here to necessarily suggest that this is not something that you should pass, but it's something that you should get a lot of consideration to. For example, if you look at the audience today, I mean, where is everybody? And you can ask about, what the notice was sent out, but to the east and west of the project are properties dedicated to the elderly. You've got a rehab and you've got the home. and then you've got the mobile home park to the northeast. I didn't see anything in the newspaper about this. I didn't see anything in the Lakeland Now. You know, usually when there's a project of significant impact, it's people know about it. And I've talked to a few people, and myself being a resident of Lakeland and living in and working in the area, this is a situation where less is more. When you talk about taking 552 elder units, you know, assisted living, we recognize they drive less, they do less, and that's based on limitations. I'm getting up there in years. I'm a veteran. I'm starting to notice that, you know, I don't go out as much. And what we're talking about now, I noticed they said an option. Well, if keeping it for the elderly and assisted living is an option, then just keep it. This plan was approved in 2005. You have to wonder if somebody would have came in 2005 and said, well, we're going to put market rate multifamily smack dab in the middle of the PUD. That's significant change.
For the record, sir, it was 2015, not 2005.
2015, wasn't
Yes.
that long ago, right?
Yeah, correct.
The project down the road, I think, is about 125 acres, and it went to 900-something units. But this is 320 units on 25 acres. If you multiply that by 5, that's 1,600 units. So it's quite dense. And on the application, it says residential medium. This is over 12 units per acre from my calculations. I didn't see anything about road improvements. I did hear we have school concurrency, but is that a place where you want to raise children with assisted living and elder care? It's a totally different group of residents that bring loud impacts and activities. It would be a bustling community right next to the home. And if you look at your code and the statute, what do we talk about compatibility? Can these uses coexist in harmony or in a stable fashion? What are the negative impacts? You have legal authority to deny this application. Right now, you've approved many projects in the community. You've got 252 units of apartments off Pipkin, 200 at Oak Street, 500 apartments in Southwest District. The Ledger is being rezoned for apartments. You got the Wedgewood Golf Course project. Audubon Oaks is increasing their multifamily. So really the option to say, well, we want to sell this either as multifamily for, you know, 1 to 2 bedroom apartments to the average buyer out there that's, you know, entry-level housing or whatever, that traffic impact is significantly different than the proposed 552 elderly units because they don't require as many roads. I guess in closing, and again, 3 minutes is not a lot of time, but I understand that.
Sir, we got a few seconds.
Got about 2 minutes left.
You know you got about 12 seconds.
Nobody here? What?
12 seconds.
12 seconds. Well, there are a lot of organizations you could talk to about the elderly and their needs. That's one of our missions in life is to take care of the elderly. And I think planning this multifamily project smack dab between the rehab center and the home it's just not compatible when you have the legal authority to deny this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Campbell, do you have any comments in response?
Well, Mr. Chair, is that it for
Is
the
there
public
anybody else from
comment?
the audience? Yeah. Anybody else from the public have any comments?
Any other public comment? Thank you.
Tim Campbell again. No, sir, I don't know that that warrants response other than just to make it clear that appropriate notice was given as it is in every other case. I would suggest that the lack of attendance here is because our proposal is a reduction in impacts. I'll tell you, there are 2 gentlemen here who live in the mobile home park. We spoke beforehand. I think this is a very good request. I've explained to you why it's in the alternative, and we respectfully request, actually we'll come back next week with a staff report. We will respectfully request your approval at that time, and we thank you for your consideration.
Joe.
And thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a couple of questions of the applicant in terms of what we would want to try to include in the conditions for next month. The city commission has really been interested in the unit mix in terms of number of bedrooms, and so if that's something that we can write into the zoning conditions, I think that's going to greatly help with our conversation here at the board and at the commission level.
We will make that final decision before the next hearing, and we'll provide that to you.
Perfect. And then what is under the revised plan, what is the building height of that new multifamily building kind of closest to Heather Point? And what is the building height of that, and what is the distance from the property property boundary?
I apologize, I'm trying to get the camera up and it's not working. Yeah, my apologies, I'm trying to get the camera to work again and it's not, oh, there it goes. Oh.
There we go.
We go to the plan only, the other one. So the building in the top right corner, that building is proposed. The one you saw briefly was proposed to be a 4-story, keeping in mind the orientation is towards the lake, and so the impacts to the north to the mobile home park are just end of building. There are no units or balconies. The building next to it, to the left, is 3-story, and you can see that orientation is towards that mobile home park. So we've limited that to a 3-story.
Can you zoom in with the camera, maybe? See the text?
And then I just wanted to make sure I was right. So then all of the rest of the buildings are 4-story. Keeping in mind the one in the bottom right, that was townhomes, that building, it's 4 stories, but we changed the orientation. So again, as it relates to the adjacent single family, they have an end of building rather than units and balconies and those types of impactful orientations. So the 3-story is the building 4 that you see there. That's kind of, building 4 is 3-story facing the mobile home park. The rest are proposed to be 4-story.
And what's the distance between the eastern side of building 6 and the property line?
Approximately 150 feet.
150 feet.
Because remember the previous building that was there was 5 stories all facing the mobile home park. So in each instance, we've tried to reorient to lessen impacts to adjacent uses.
And on that side too, are there any trees that would be preserved to help with that buffer on that east side? I think that's something we'd want to look at as well.
This may help. So there's an aerial version of that last plan. So there's that building, the single family residential, they have a buffer there along that property boundary between that all stays. On the north to the mobile home park, you see the significant existing buffer. I drove in there in 2015. I drove in there again before this hearing. So that is significant, thick, high. When we did an elevation in 2015, you were barely going to be able to see the top of a 5-story building. And now that'll be, end cap will be 4, and the other building will be 3. So we don't think you're really going to even see the 3-story, and at most maybe see the top of the 4-story on the end. But the trees, you can see this as except where there are buildings or parking, the rest of the trees will be maintained. They're trying to design that to maximize the retainage of trees on this site because it's a very nice site and it's an amenity for their community.
I have a question. When you go back and meet with staff about conditions, in your plan, if you choose to do market rate, as you say, housing, there are some cities that have saved a small percentage of those units to be a little bit more affordable for teachers, firemen. Is that anything that could be incorporated into your plan, if that's what you guys choose to do?
I don't know that the city of Lakeland has any such ordinance or policy.
I didn't say that there was an ordinance. I said that other developers in other cities not too far away from us have opted to include that. So is that, I'm just putting it out there, that might be something that you might want to, because when market rate and affordable are two very different things.
Understood. We will discuss that question in the interim, and so when we bring information to staff, if we have some proposal or if there's already in place a percentage, as you've suggested, we'll share that with staff before we come back to you.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Mr. Campbell? You will be coming back before us with your revised.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Nope. 6.
Item 6, we're in the general meeting area, and the review minutes for the October meeting.
Everyone has had the opportunity to review the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the October meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No, I'm
Item 7, annexation, a small-scale land use amendment to apply a future land use designation of business park and the application of planned unit development zoning concurrent with a city-initiated request to apply a suburban special purpose context district designation to allow for the development of 22,800 square feet of office uses on approximately 11.12 acres, generally located west of Pipkin Creek Road, south of Sugar Creek Drive West, and north of Creek Bend Drive. Owner Parkway Partners, LLC, applicant Marco Bay Construction, Inc.
Good morning. Again, Todd Vargo, Senior Planner with Community and Economic Development. Here's a location map. You can see the Polk Parkway right here. This is Drain Field. Here's a aerial and base map. Here's the properties over here. It's located on Pipkin Creek Road, approximately half a mile south of Drainfield. It's Drainfield / the Polk Parkway interchange. Not exactly sure at what point it stops being Drainfield and becomes the Polk Parkway interchange. There's 2 churches across the street. Single family to the north, and to the west is some light industry that's in the city. This property, as well as the property to the north, and the churches are in the county right now, so the request is for annexation, and anytime you annex into the city, we also apply a future land use district, a zoning district, and a context district. So we went over all those in the title. I'm not going to rehash that. This is the current site plan. The request is for 2 11,400 square foot offices, the first one being over here, and the second one down here. And I was not here at the last meeting, but I did understand that somebody from the single family to the north objected to the location of the dumpster for this eastern building, or building in the northeast portion. So the applicant has moved the dumpster location further south away from the single family. This is from the church across the street, the Heritage Baptist Church, looking west at the site. There certainly is a pretty good existing vegetative buffer. This is a driveway, quote unquote, on Pipkin Road, looking west at the site. I think this driveway is on the site. This is from that driveway looking south. There was at one point, I guess, a structure here, and this is the foundation. Then from the gate on Pipkin Creek Road looking west at the site, again, you can see that foundation again. And back to the current site plan. We are recommending approval. The office uses will be limited to office, both medical and non-medical. No other uses will be permitted, so this won't be an extension of the light industrial that's to the west. Most of the site is in wetlands, either wetlands or an existing stormwater pond that serves the light industrial to the west. These office buildings are built on the approximately 40% of the site, which is upland. And again, we do recommend approval. And I will read the conditions. A, permitted uses, office uses, medical and non-medical. B, maximum intensity of use, 22,800 square foot of office uses. C, development standards in accordance with the I-2 suburban special purpose context subdistrict standards, except that the maximum building height shall be limited to 1 story. D, site development plan. The site shall be developed in substantial accordance with the site development plan attachment C, which is the slide you just saw. With the approval of the Director of Community and Economic Development, minor alterations may be made at the site at the time of site plan review without requiring a modification to the PUD zoning. E, landscape and buffering in accordance with section 4.5 of the Land Development Code, except as follows. 1, existing mature trees located along the northern property boundary shall be protected and preserved as part of the required landscape buffer adjacent to Sugar Creek Estates. Again, that's the single family to the north. 2, existing mature trees located along the site's Pipkin Creek road frontage shall be preserved to maintain the character of this roadway. 3, at the time of site plan review, the developer of the project shall work with Parks and Recreation to identify which trees will be set aside and preserved. Trees which are in poor health and invasive species or represent a hazard shall not be subject to these requirements. F, signage. In accordance with section 4.9.4.3 of the Land Development Code. G, outdoor lighting. All outdoor lighting fixtures shall be of the fully shielded type, such that the light emitting, distributing, reflecting, and refracting components of the light fixture, the lamp, lens, reflective surfaces, etc., shall not extend beyond the opaque housing of the fixture. H, outdoor storage of equipment, materials, or machinery shall be prohibited. I'll scratch that is when it goes to the City Commission, sorry. I, transportation. Number 1, binding concurrency determinations shall be made at the time of site plan submittal. And 2, a sidewalk shall be constructed along the site's Pipkin Creek Road frontage. An Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, compliant pedestrian route shall be constructed between the Pipkin Creek Road frontage sidewalk and principal building entrances. And 3, prior to first site plan submittal, an annexation petition shall be submitted to the Lakeland Area Mass Transit District for action by its Board of Directors. 4, due to the site's proximity to Lakeland Linder International Airport, an navigation easement agreement shall be executed and recorded by the Polk County Clerk of Courts prior to site plan submittal. 5, bicycle parking shall be provided in compliance with section 4.11.6 of the Land Development Code and index 900 of the City Engineering Standards Manual. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. I think there's a representative of Marco Bay Construction here as well. But again, I think you saw this last last week. It's fairly straight, last month. I think it's fairly straightforward, and we recommend approval.
Any questions?
One of the conditions was to have an ADA compliant sidewalk to the buildings. Is the intent to take a sidewalk all the way to the back building as well? Just didn't seem like that was in the current site plan.
I think that's why we put the condition in there, and it does say principal building entrances, so.
That would
yeah,
be the intent.
The intent would be to take the back building as well.
Any other questions from the board?
I realize this was you said this was presented last month. I was unfortunately not here. Was there any opposition or support?
Again, I wasn't here either. The only thing I believe, again, was there was somebody from Sugar Creek Estates. This dumpster was located up here, closer to the single family, and the request was to move this away from the single family homes to the north. And again, the applicant moved it about as far as they could.
And I received a phone call expressing concern about the view from, I think it's Shearwater Drive over Lakeside Preserve. And so the conditions related to the Pipkin Creek Road frontage would address that comment as well.
It's been conveyed to the applicant, and have they stated their agreement with those conditions?
Good morning again. For purposes of your record, Tim Campbell, Clark Campbell, Lancaster, Workman and Ayers, 500 South Florida Avenue, Suite 800, representing the owner Parkway Partners 1 and Marco Bay Construction, the applicant. Yes, the conditions have been conveyed. And for Commissioner Roberts, we were here last time. The application was filed before I was involved. We recognized when we looked at it, the dumpster didn't need to be on the north side, so we addressed that concern at the hearing to say that would clearly be moved. Your staff talked about our intention to preserve the existing vegetative buffer along Pipkin Creek Road, and we agreed to that, and to the north, so all of that will be preserved. And this, just as a tiny bit of background, Parkway Partners is the owner because this all along has been kind of owned in conjunction with the Parkway Corporate Center, and at some point was intended to be connected. It was not, and I think that may be some of the background of why residents in the area kind of understood that this was going to be some type of activity. The stormwater pond on the southwest corner is an interrelated. It serves the Parkway Corporate Center and this property, and it either is sized to accommodate these office uses, or it will be modified to make sure that it also accommodates the stormwater for this site. And so with that, we did get not really any pushback. We have reviewed the conditions proposed by staff, and we do agree to them.
Any other questions? Do I hear a motion to accept the staff approval?
Motion to approve with conditions presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members.
Item number 8. Change in zoning from medium industrial and limited development, and a major modification of existing planned unit development zoning to allow an 820,300 square foot warehouse distribution center on approximately 66.6 acres, generally located west of Airport Road and north of Drain Field Road, 3805 Drain Field Road. Owner, Woods Family Management LLC, applicant Jim Studial, and note staff requests a 1-month continuance.
That is correct. Good morning. For the record, Philip Scarce, Principal Planner with Community Economic Development. This case came before you last month as a public hearing. We said we'd be back this month with our staff recommendation. However, there's just a little too many transportation issues to work out as we finalize the finalize the transportation analysis and working with the Florida Department of Transportation. We haven't had those issues resolved yet, so we're meeting with them later this week. So hopefully have a resolution, and we'll be back to you at the December meeting.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
See Mr. Studial is here. Good? Okay. We need a motion.
Do we need a motion for
Yeah.
continuances?
I move to grant staff's request for a 1-month continuance on this item.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Item 9, plat approval for the lakes at Laurel Highlands Phase 2C on 72.11 acres, generally located north of Parkway Frontage Road North and west of Winston Park Boulevard. Owner D.R. Horton, Inc., applicant Taylor Trough, American Surveying and Mapping, Inc.
Good morning, again, Philip Scarce with Community Economic Development. Yeah, we have a plat approval as Lakes of Laurel Highlands moves along, nearing completion. This is for Phase 2C, which is a 72-acre plat. The majority of it is mostly wetlands and floodplains. There is a small 14 lot single-family subdivision within this portion. So this, you see in the hatched here, this is all Phase 2C. This first page here, we'll just drill down. So this is mostly a conservation area. You can see there's some isolated wetlands. There is 14 lots here coming off Winston Park Boulevard. This also includes a lift station track that was previously constructed and accepted by the city. So things are moving along in Lakes of Laurel Highlands, and we're eager to get this plat finished, and the developer is, and get this one recorded. And this does come to you with a recommendation of approval from our development review team, subdivision review. So, we stand for any questions you may have.
Questions from the board? Is there a motion to accept staff recommendation? No motion?
Motion to approve the plat as presented.
We have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Item 10, plat approval for the Oaks at Lake Parker on 3.54 acres, generally located north of Lake Place Court, south of Heritage Landings Drive, and west of North Lake Parker Avenue. Owner JSK Consulting, applicant CMTG Real Estate Enterprises.
I think you have those reversed.
I do?
Yeah.
No?
Good morning. Again, Philip Scarce, Community Economic Development. I didn't have a chance to change this slideshow, but we are going to recommend, the staff is going to recommend a 1-month continuance on this preliminary plat being approved by the Planning and Zoning Board. There are still some outstanding issues with water utilities, that there's some infrastructure testing and documentation, including DEP, that need clearances. So water utilities asked us to continue this case. They are working with the applicant to get these issues resolved, and they are really close to completion. They got some model units that we're holding for these issues as well, but we are recommending a 1-month continuance.
I hear a motion to grant the staff's request for continuance.
Move to grant the staff's recommendation for a continuance.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And to clarify, and Mr. Roberts, you were reading it correctly, and we will correct for next month. The owner is CMTG, the applicant is JSK.
Yeah.
So we will make that correction when you see this again next month.
Okay, item 11, report of city commission action on planning and zoning board recommendations, along with planning and transportation managers report.
All right, well, I think as we start getting closer to the holidays, things will start slowing down, hopefully a little bit. The city commission will be asked to approve the land use and zoning changes related to the Sage property on the Second District Court of Appeals site at its meeting on the 21st, on this coming Monday. Gibson Trails, the first hearing will be, for the land use and zoning, will be on Monday as well. Going forward to, I think it's December 5th, would be final action on the land use and zoning. Because the land use is subject to our certification agreement with the Department of Economic Opportunity, it doesn't need to go through the formal review process, state coordinated review process in Tallahassee. And so we've got an opportunity to have, in essence, a transmittal hearing on the 21st, and then the adoption hearing following that. So subject to city commission discussion and any additional information if they want from the applicant, that's what we're looking at there in terms of the timing for that project. Central Florida Health is on hold at this point until the right-of-way vacation processes related to Missouri Avenue, the north-south alley next to Florida Avenue, and Fifth Street right-of-way as well. The vacation and acquisition of that would need to go through the Real Estate and Transportation Committee and the City Commission. It can happen at the same meeting as the zoning action, but that needs to happen concurrent, and so that's why Central Florida Health is in a bit of a holding pattern at this point as well. Unless we've got something here recently, the only hearing coming up for next month would be the chapel event space on Massachusetts Avenue. This was an item that was agended last month, was pulled at the last minute. So we've got a new applicant that's moving forward with that. It's conditional use to allow for a bar special event venue at that location. And so we're going to need to see action by the Downtown Development Authority before it comes to the P&Z. That should be happening, I believe it'll be
Thursday this week.
Thursday
Yeah.
this week. And so that's on track to come to you for discussion and final action on the 20th of December. And kind of beyond that, I just want to wish you all and the public a happy Thanksgiving. I can't believe we're already here, but we very much appreciate your service and continued patience as we go through what has been a year of exciting projects in our community. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your work and the entire staff's work. We wish all of you a happy
We've got an
Thanksgiving.
incredible staff.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Not understand.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
I still don't understand.